Hello, welcome back. In this particular session, I will be talking about rendering of web page. So, what do you understand by rendering, or how a web page has been rendered? This is one of the very important questions that is asked in the interview also, right? So, in this session, we'll be going to talk about rendering of web page. So, I just want to show you something before that. So, let me, open one browser. Okay, so you can see my Chrome browser, right? Say suppose I want to go to YouTube, so I type www.youtube, okay, .com, and I press enter. Okay, so you can see it is moving on, right? And slowly you can see the home page of the web page. Now, and this is once we type this particular, the URL of YouTube, okay, and then after that we can see the entire homepage of the YouTube. So this one is actually the entire process is the rendering of the web page, and you'll be astonished to know that in this particular fraction of second, if you can see the home page, right? So it actually involves around 20 steps, right? So let us understand this particular each of these 20 steps, how exactly this particular page, or how exactly a web page is been rendered, right? Okay, so let us visit taking back. So now first step is type the URL into the address bar in your preferred browser. So as I showed you that in the Chrome browser I have typed www.youtube.com, right? And then the browser parses the URL, okay, to find the protocol, host, port, and path. So if you have gone through networking also, you could have understood protocol, right? So protocol is nothing but a set of rule, and the host from where I am actually typing, then the port to which the connection will be taking, and the path where exactly it will be going, so which particular part will be taken up. In the steps tree, since we know that whatever it's web page we are talking, right? So these are nothing but hypertext. So the protocol that is associated with this particular web page is that HTTP, which is called as hypertext transport protocol. Now the thing is, I need to reach that particular computer, that particular say I'm typing www.youtube.com, so where exactly this particular website is being stored. This will be stored somewhere in a server, somewhere in a computer itself, right? Okay, no, so now all of us know that each of this particular server or machine is identified in the internet using what we call as the IP number, right? What is called the internet protocol number. Now the thing is, when I'm typing www.youtube.com, I'm not writing the internet protocol number, right? Okay, so that means I'm just typing the domain name itself. This is what is called as the domain name. So today, if I want to open my own website itself, okay, so I have to find a domain name, so I can go and search my domain name and all this thing. I will show you, right? So now thing is that this particular each of this domain name will be stored in somewhere which is called as DNS, the domain name system, right? Where exactly www I've written the youtube.com, okay, the corresponding IP address of that domain, okay, will be there will be the domain name system. So it will try to extract that IP number, then only we'll know where exactly we need to go and find the the server where this www your YouTube has been is been stored. Okay, so now domain name stand for like a domain name system, which is the database responsible for storing all the information pertaining to IP address and domain names online. So what I'm saying that is right, that youtube.com, that google.com, right? Even getup.com, all these things all there will be IP address be stored, okay, in this particular domain name system itself. Yes. So now, why do you use this particular domain name? Because it is not possible for us to type, and remember the IP address. If I write an IP address like 27.0.0 dot something like 23 and all, so it is very difficult. It may be 192.168.172.1. This is what my YouTube IP address itself. So it is very difficult for each of us to remember. So if I put a name, right, I write YouTube, right, Gara for Google, so it is easy for us to remember. Second is that Today I'm storing in this particular server which is located in Singapore. Tomorrow I thought that I will transfer this into Paris, or maybe I will transfer that into New York itself, right? Then what will happen? My IP address will going to change. Yes, so it will be very difficult for me to make my customer understand that see my IP address has changed and this is what my IP address itself. Apart from that, multiple IP address, some site associate, multiple IP address with a single, domain itself. So these all reason why we are using the DNS, which is called as the domain name system, right? Okay. So now more thing we can discuss, but it's not in this particular because we are talking about rendering of page. So it goes to the domain name server, it extract the IP address. Okay, once it extract the IP address, you know where exactly it is in that particular server. Now we need to open a socket. So a socket need to be opened from the user's computer to the IP number on the port specified. Okay, so now from I'm writing here now, since I was showing you, sorry. Okay, I was showing you this particular, right? So this is from my machine I am doing, right? So from my machine a socket has to be created, right? A socket has to be created, and to the IP number. Okay, IP number is here, is not the IP number of this YouTube itself, something like it can be 162.1 as I was stating, right? And there will be a port, and mostly for the HTTP it is the port number 80, right? Now in the step 6, when a connection is open, HTTP request is sent to the host. Now my socket is created, okay, and then it is open, my from my computer to that particular server, the connection is open, okay, and it is sent to the host itself. Now, right now this host will forward a request to the server software configured to listen on the specific port. Now once it goes to this particular host itself, okay, then it will go to that particular software itself where it is configured to listen the specified host itself, okay. And then in the step where the server inspect the request, you will see what kind of request it is, okay, and based on that, most oftenly on the part itself, and then launches the server plugin needed to handle the request. So any what kind of request it is coming, so how I have to handle it. So all this thing will be started to work out, okay. And then in the step 9, the plugin get access to the full request and start to prepare the HTTP response. Now I okay, I get the full access, I know what's the request is. Now I started to prepare my responses back itself. Now the thing is, having said this, in step number 10, okay, there may be something like in the request there may be some kind of database associated. You have to go to the database and find and access some data and all this thing. So steps they will going to constant respond a database, okay, most likely database. A database search is made based on the parameters in the part of data of the request, okay. Say for example, I go for login, and I want to log in into the the ICCI, okay. So if I go to the ICCI website itself, okay, so let me see. If I go like this, yes, so you can see my login, yes. So once I put my user ID and password, okay, it will go to this particular bank site. Now whether my user ID and password is valid and not, where it will be stored, it is stored in some kind of database itself, right? And see whether it is valid or not. It will check and it will send me the response itself. So similarly, okay, so this is what it will be done, right? So if it is required to get it access, first I just open the website, nothing is required for database. But next, if I require for the login and password to validate it, database accessible. So data from the database together with other information plugin decide to add and combine then into a long script. Probably it will be nothing but an HTML itself, okay. And a plugin combines that data with some metadata in the form of HTML header, and it is sent back to the browser, right? So once I know this is what my request is, this is what I need to create the response itself, okay, then after that combine and I will send back to my browser. Now it will come back to my browser. Now the browser will receive the response, okay, my browser will receive the response. You can see slowly it was painting and it was coming up, right? So once it's written, it will parse the HTML, and once it is parsed the HTML, it will create a tree which is called as DOM tree, which is called as document object, okay, right? DOM means document object, and it is nothing but a cross-platform language application programming interface that helps to treat this HTML document as a tree structure, where in each node is an object representing the part of the document itself. Okay, so having said this, more will discuss in some in other session itself. So now DOM objects, each of this now document. Okay, so each of you can see this one, you got a node, HTML itself is a node, head is a node, body is a node, title is a node, H1 is a, so this way the entire the DOM tree is been created. So a browser rely on the outlet engines. So right, Chrome will be having an WebKit. Now it is not WebKit, another engine is there. So this will going to parse into this particular DOM tree. Yes. So once it is done, okay, new requests are made to the server for each new request that is found in HTML. So typically images, style sheet, JavaScript. Now let me come back. Now here in the title, okay, in a head, okay, I put a heading, okay, in a title, and then in a H1 itself, I have put some CSS, okay, I have used some JavaScripts and all this thing. So correspondingly, it will go and will try to fetch each of this particular thing. That is what it is saying, right? So it will go back to the steps tree and then repeat from each resource. So somewhere I want to have in a bootstrap itself, so you'll go to that bootstrap server itself. Images are stored, okay, like in the server itself. It will go back and it will try to extract all these things, okay, and the style sheet will be parsed, okay, and render the information, and it's get attached to the matching node in the DOM tree. So suppose here itself, okay, it will go and it will start adding into the this particular node itself, okay, and the JavaScript parts in the 17 executed, and DOM nodes are moved and style information updated accordingly. So when you learn JavaScript, you will understand some events are there on load type, right? So at that particular point, it will be parsed and be executed itself. Okay. So by now, step 18, the browser render the page on the screen. Now start, rendering the page on the screens according to the DOM tree and the style information for the each of the nodes. Okay, and you start seeing the page on the screen. Now that you imagine, everything happens in a fraction of second, but if the net connection is slow or something happened to the server is not able to respond, so what will happen is that either will get annoyed with the whole process too slow, right? So exactly, so you see the render of web page. So HTML parts, and you go into a DOM tree. Okay, so there will be some style sheet. So CSS parsing will be happen. Okay, then we'll have a certain layout attachment. Then the render tree. Then it will start painting, and you can see the entire the web page itself. Okay, right. So browser stem, process HTML market, and build a DOM tree. Okay, process CSS market and build as a CSS tree. Okay, now you combine both this tree and into a render tree. Run layout on the render tree to compute the geometry of each node, and then paint the individual node into the screen. Okay, so now having said this, okay, now you have understood that the entire 10 steps, starting from 20 steps, sorry, starting from putting the URL, okay, and then how the URL, that particular domain has been converted into IP address, then how the socket has been created, how the connection has been made, how the request has been sent, okay, then how request has been processed, okay, then it is sent as a response, then in the browser, so when it comes, okay, the entire parsing is started. So you created the HTML, the DOM tree itself, then corresponding each of this particular node, okay, whatever CSS is there or JavaScript really started to render up. Okay, we have seen that DOM and CSSOM, okay, tree that is created and rendered into this. Once everything is done, then you can see the whole place starting up, is starting to display in your screen. Okay, so having said this, so it is uh, not very tough to remember the entire step itself, because I have given the entire description. So you can start up with starting from the URL itself to conversion of DNS into the IP address. Okay, then the socket connection, then the responses, okay, the request, then the response, and then after that in the entire rendering how it happens with the DOM 3, CSM3, and entire page where how it is been created. Okay, so this is what exactly the and understand, and you can see this particular diagram and it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, so thank you so much and have a